was this moose?
Stretching across the border between the United States and Canada is a land of high mountains and deep snows, wide valleys and shallow lakes. In this place of great natural beauty lives a great homely animal, the North American moose. Now, at maybe 12 or 1,400 pounds, a bull moose is actually the largest antlered animal to ever live anywhere on Earth. So naturally, what the moose does most is eat. And he kind of favors the tender growth at the bottom of a lake. Every summer, a bull moose grows a whole new rack of antlers. Every autumn, he uses them to battle with other bulls, hoping to win favor with the females. Shortly after the snow falls, so do the antlers. Now the only battle is for survival. In early spring, when streams first run free of winter ice, the female moose heads for seclusion in the deep woods. And in a certain valley, on a certain day, seems there was this moose came into the world. Now, a moose calf, as a general rule, spends its first year with mother. And as spring passed into summer, this youngster seemed to be following the rules. By midsummer, though, it was plain that he wasn't a run-of-the-mill mooseling. Little peculiarities started showing up. For instance, there was a phase when his nose attracted butterflies. When the mother moose started her mooseling on solid food, she taught by demonstration. The way her youngster learned would have earned him an A+ grade in the human world. In nature's world, though, there are no grades, rewards, or punishment. There are only consequences. And this particular mooseling was a natural-born creator of consequences. Like today, a whole forest full of leaves, but only one hornet's nest. Right away, he spotted exactly the food he really wanted. Little high. All right, he could wait. Things might work out. Consequently, things did work out, all because a hunting coyote had his sights on some nearby ducks. He should have had hindsight, too, but he didn't. Just up the hill, a wayfaring skunk had wayfared right into the path of the big stampede. skunk figured something serious might be coming up next. He'd best go underground till the heat was off. The place he headed for was occupied, but that hip-shooting, air-polluting polecat was loaded for bear. The leaves he wanted. He hadn't turned a hoof to get them either. That's how it went, on through summer and into autumn, when he got to feeling independent of Mother. So he decided to climb a mountain, just because it was there. Away up above the snow line, he got tired looking at all that white wilderness. He figured it might be greener on the other side of the hill. Trouble was, it wasn't. By now he was weary, and that was bad. But he'd found a place to rest, and that was good. Until he decided to move, and that was bad, because he headed for a spot he thought was good, and that was really bad. It started a whole string of consequences. To begin, a small family of wolves was moving in that direction. The day before, the wolves had made a kill close by. Now they were coming back to finish what was left. Meantime, a prowling cougar had picked up the moosling's trail. Now he was closing in. Then he spotted a better deal. All he had to do was move in there and take over. When the wolves decided to yield the field, it should have made things safer for one small moose. But now there was really big trouble coming up. This grizzly was the boss in these parts. He had first call on all food. There was no room for argument. That left the moosling alone with the king of the grizzlies. A grizzly's eyes aren't the best, but his nose and ears are second to none. This one was almost onto something. Then he got sidetracked. have missed him if the raccoon had kept going and kept still, but he didn't. Raccoon still wasn't scared, but he was tired of all that climbing. Well, so was the bear. The raccoon finally made his escape, and that was a break for the little moose. By then, the bear had forgotten what brought him here in the first place. Besides, it was time to head for the den. The big snows were already on the way. For the moose, the danger was gone, but the instinct to sit tight stayed, and stayed, and stayed. Consequently, when at last he decided it was safe to get up and go home, it was already too late. Now, the moose is constitutionally well adapted to winter weather, including a diet of cold cuts and frozen dinners. If there's plenty of them, a young moose will keep right on growing. That's how it was for this youngster. For the next few months, all he really liked was company. It was mighty lonesome being a motherless mooseling, all by himself, behind the long white veil of winter. When spring finally came to the high country, it was not a mooseling that moved down into the nearest valley. He was a moose now, with a first-year set of antlers and about twice as much size. Consequently, he was twice as lonesome. Well, now, over there was a four-legged something or other. Probably wasn't his mother, but it might be a friend. The fact is, a moose is a natural long-distance swimmer. Making this crossing wasn't much more than a refreshing dip, but it was enough to bring him into a whole new and different world. A little food and friendship, that's all he was looking for. Around here, he wouldn't get any of either. Golly, somewhere there ought to be someone willing to make a poor, lonesome moose feel welcome. Now, this goat, name of Billy, didn't have many visitors, so it was a nice change of pace to see a strange face. That was a strange face for sure. They had just enough time to get well acquainted because the high point of Billy's day was about to arrive. The boss was coming home. His name was Pete Peterson. For more years than he cared to remember, he'd been running a vegetable route through the nearby town of Riverton. Being a methodical sort of man, Pete could pretty well figure his daily sales. Still, he always managed to end the day with a few leftovers. Billy always looked forward to helping him clean up the cart.
All right, you're not starving.
Up to now, this had been a normal, everyday day for Pete Peterson. It would be the last for a while. All because that moose figured his new friend over there needed help getting rid of that grub. Pete had seen moose around these parts before, but he'd never had one crash in and invite himself to dinner. Not knowing what else to do, Pete did nothing. If he just went on about his business, that moose would probably get all fed up and go away. Later on, he'd have to do a little fence mending. But for tonight, Pete figured to leave that moose a way out. Next morning was about like any other morning at Pete's place. There was no moose in sight, and Pete's mind was on his daily routine. Fact is, though, out of sight and out of mind was just too good to last.
Why don't you get out of here, mister? Big-nosed palooka.
If his uninvited guest was still around when he got back, Pete figured he'd have to do something about it. One thing sure, there was no time to do anything now. He was a man that kept an iron-bound schedule. everything was under control. All except old consequences here. Generally, when Billy followed Pete out to the fence to say goodbye, it meant the start of another long, lonesome day. But this day was going to be different. Billy had himself a friend. Time was when a full day of pushing that cart was no chore for Pete. But the years had changed that, and other things were changing too, like the old Riverton market where Pete bought his produce. It was Tidwell's Riverton market now, and the new owner, young Wally Tidwell, had all kinds of big plans and newfangled notions.
And if everything's handled right, this market has great potential.
And that's why I'm going to give bigger bargains and better service than Riverton ever had before.
I might even have home deliveries.
You've got that already.
Yes, I know, Pete, but that's your service. It's not the market's.
Yeah, Mrs. Garrett and Mrs. Davis and all the rest of them, they'll know where it comes from.
Yes, I know. Anyway, I want you to think over my offer.
Already have. Well, thanks some more, Pete. I'm going to need help. I'd sure like to have you working for me. Mr. Tidwell, for more years than you've been living, I've been working. And in all that time, I never met a man who could be my boss. And, son, I still haven't met him.
Actually, Wally liked that independent old cuss. Even better, he liked the idea of getting him into the market. He'd sure bring a lot of customers along with him. Now, Pete's produce route wasn't exactly a gold mine, but there was a good margin of profit in the vegetables from his own little garden. He'd saved the garden, for the time being, that is. From then on, though, that moose's consequence factor kept reaching new highs.
Bruised it, you bought it. 10 cents, please.
his last delivery. Now Pete could head for home and a welcome rest. At first glance, things looked normal enough, except for that moose in the yard, of course.
Your welcome's getting awful thin, mister. Billy, why don't you send that friend of yours packing? All right, mister. You don't want to get out? Well, I'll just help you out. Oh, you like bananas, huh, mister? All right, you can have bananas. Just follow me. Come on, Billy, get down. Where are your manners? Come on, mister. Nice bananas. Nice banana. That's it. Follow me, mister. Nice bananas. You can have all you want to eat. Just follow me, mister. There you are, mister. Go get 'em. All right. The big woods is in that direction. Now, you just go on over there and find your folks, all right?
A little fence reparation and moose motivation, and it looked like that solved the problem. Yep, that's what it looked like. Next morning dawned dark and gloomy, and that was just for openers. For Pete, this dark day would just keep getting darker.
Billy?
It was shaping up to be one of those days. Already his watch wasn't running, the sun wasn't shining, the gate needed oiling, the cartwheel was rattling, and overnight the price of lettuce had gone up 20%.
Well, how is it, Pete? Good enough?
Not good enough to cost a nickel more than it did yesterday.
Pete, it cost me 5 cents more. It's not like I'm making a profit.
Well, I'm not going to raise my price.
It's all right with me. Remember, if you go broke, you still got a job waiting here.
Don't forget to order plenty of potatoes, onions, melons, picnic stuff for next week. Founder's Day. It's a big time around here.
What do you mean, big time?
Well, you know, like the 4th of July, only bigger. Baseball game, picnic in the park. Everybody celebrates.
They do, huh?
Yep. Everybody eats lots of hamburgers with onions and tater salad. Good business for me.
Yeah, I bet it is. Bigger than the 4th of July, huh?
Yep, and Labor Day put together.
Huh. Now, Pete. Pete. Say, anybody ever put on a fireworks show here?
Nope, not in my memory.
You suppose folks would like it if I put one on?
Oh, I reckon everybody likes fireworks.
Yeah, it might make a nice, grand opening for the market. Huh?
So would a sale on lettuce.
Sometimes being your own boss just isn't worth it, Pete. Now, if you're working for me...
You got a cotter pin in that progressive market of yours?
No, but I can order one for you. Pete, gotta go. There's nobody minding the market. Meantime, try that for size.
By the time Pete got it all together and out on the route, he was about an hour late. It didn't matter, though. There sure wasn't anybody waiting. Finally, one customer. From then on, it was downhill all the way for the rest of the day. For Pete Peterson, this was about the worst thing that could possibly happen. What's more, although the cause was leaving, the consequences would keep coming. It was sad walking for Pete the next morning. He had no hope for fixing his old cart and no heart for building a new one. Still, he couldn't bring himself to accept that job at the market. This trip was only to cancel all his orders with Wally Tidwell. After this, he'd say goodbye to his customers, which would create a bigger bang than fireworks on Founder's Day, if there'd been any, which there wasn't. Seems there was this moose wandering around taking in the sights. Like always, looking for food, and like always, creating consequences. Very morning, Wally Tidwell's fireworks had been delivered and stored in a quarry outside of town. The next couple of days were the longest Pete Peterson had ever known. It was mighty hard to accept the fact that he had nothing but time on his hands. Still, he'd been his own man too long to change now. So on this morning, when Wally Tidwell showed up, Pete figured he'd have to turn down that job once and for all. Fact is, though, Wally had something more than just a job in mind. Today, he was going to make Pete an offer he couldn't resist. That meant there might be one good consequence left in the wake of that trouble-trailing moose. By that time, though, he was already heading across a certain lake. On the other side was moose country. Here he'd spend the next 2 years. By then, physically speaking, he was a mature bull moose. Spirit-wise, though, he had some more growing to do. For instance, he still didn't like to eat alone. A flock of Canada geese was just as good company as a single deer, as far as he was concerned. There came a day when he was even willing to have a sociable lunch with a bear. Trouble was, Blackie got hostile about it. The face-off with that bear had made a difference. From now on, in the natural manner of a bull moose, this late starter would become more and more solitary. But first there came a strange recurrence of an old condition, itchy hooves. Late one evening, he found himself in vaguely familiar territory, then a definitely familiar sight. This time, it was no accident. It was the third annual Founders Day show, sponsored by the limited partnership of Tidwell and Peterson. We deliver. It wouldn't do to say this triggered a memory in that moose, but it's a fact that he started acting like a moose that was looking for something and meant to find it, if it took the rest of the night and all next day. So, could be he did remember. After all, somewhere around these parts, he'd met the first friend he ever had.
Hello, Billy. Hiya, Billy. All right, Billy, all right. Stay down, Billy. All right, you're not starving. Down, Billy, you're not... Mister? Mister, is that you, mister? Yeah, I think so too. All right, mister. Yeah, it's been a long time, hasn't it, mister? I guess he just came back to say hello. At least, I hope he came back just to say hello.
Whatever the reason, he turned down the last taste of civilization. Now it was back to moose country, this time to stay. And that was good. Maybe the best part is, though, that he finally got around to creating the kind of consequences old Mother Nature intended him to. And it's hard to beat that for a happy ending.